Hey friends, welcome back to our place for another video. Today's one is a massive one. We're going to tackle another $50 grocery budget challenge where I'm going to feed my family for the next 5 nights with a teeny tiny grocery budget of just $50. My plan for this grocery budget challenge is to come up with 5 different separate dinner meals. They are going to serve 4 people each. I want those serving sizes to be generous. I don't want this to be one of those challenges where you say that you're feeding 4 people, but really 2 of them are toddlers who are hardly eating anything. No, we are going for 4 adult size portions at a minimum. We're going to stretch this grocery budget as far as we can and see just how much bang for our buck we can get with $50 from the supermarket. So I've got a lot to share with you guys. There is a lot going on. These meals were delicious. My family loved them. We had full tummies and leftovers because this made more than 20 serves. We did well. I'm excited to share this with you. So why don't we jump in and have a look at our grocery list, the ingredients that we're going to use to pull these 5 dinners together. And this is my little grocery haul. These are the groceries that I'm going to be using to make the 5 recipes that are going to come together. I have purchased these from a couple of different supermarkets. So this has come from my pantry and my freezer, plus a little bit of a top-up shop today. But what I actually did was I put all of this into the Coles app and I priced it all out as if I went to Coles and I purchased the best prices at Coles today. So you can do a similar thing if you want to do and see what the price would be like in your area. That way you can compare supermarkets, you can compare Coles and Woolies and see which one is going to be cheaper. But this is going to give you an average price if you were to go to Coles and buy mostly all of the home brand stuff, because that is what I've compared, and they're the prices that I'm going to put up for you guys on the screen is the Coles prices. So let's start off with our proteins. I do have 2 packets of tofu. This is the 500 gram blocks of tofu. These are out of my freezer, so they are frozen, but I'm going to be using that in 2 of our recipes. And for the rest of our protein sources for this week, I have a tin of black beans, a tin of chickpeas, and a tin of cannellini beans. So Coles and Woolies, the home brand prices for all of your tinned beans, it usually sits around $1.10, which is a pretty good price. So you can pick up the home brand versions of these items fairly cheaply. I also have a tin of coconut milk. I would have preferred coconut cream because I just think you get a little bit more bang for your buck with coconut cream as opposed to the milk, but I couldn't get that. They didn't have any in stock, so we're going to use coconut milk. But on my shopping list for you guys, if you want to follow along at home, I do have coconut cream because I think that is a better buy for what we want to do with these recipes. I also have a tin of diced tomatoes. Again, grab your home brand Coles or Woolies one. It's about $1.10 and it's going to save you some money. I've opted to buy a litre of stock. You don't need to do this. You could use homemade stock if that's what you wanted to do. This is a bit of a shortcut. This one was on sale and you can buy an equivalent one from Coles for about $1.90. So you could save yourself $2 by leaving this one off if you are happy to either use stock powder or make stock yourself. Maybe you've got some in the freezer and you could just use that up. But there's another way to save couple of dollars there if you wanted to. 1 kilo of rice. Just grab your home brand rice because rice is rice. Save yourself a couple of dollars there. This one was on sale when I picked this one up from the IGA for $1.50, which is actually a pretty good price. Regular old price of white rice, Coles, home brand is about $1.80. So, you know, if you see a bargain, pick it up, but you don't always have to buy the brand named stuff. A bag of pasta. Now I am using wholemeal organic pasta because that's what I have on hand. But if I was buying this from the supermarket for the purpose of doing one shop to buy all of these meals, I would just buy plain old $1 pasta from Coles because that's all you need for this meal. It doesn't need to be wholemeal, doesn't need to be organic. This is just what I've got on hand. So I'm going to use up the things that are in my pantry before I go and buy more stuff, but good old plain pasta will do exactly what you want it to do. I've also picked up some mint. The supermarket that I went to today, you can actually pick up just however much herbs you want. They don't come pre-packaged. So this cost me about 30 cents. Maybe you know somebody, or maybe you're growing some mint, so it wouldn't cost you anything at all. Or you could probably omit that if you wanted to, but I think that's going to add a nice summery vibe to a few of our meals. Let's jump into the frozen stuff and then we'll come back to the fresh produce. For the frozen stuff, I would opt for home brand over any of the brand name stuff. So the 1 kilo bag of Coles home brand beans is the cheapest that you can get. It's more than what you need. I'm only going to use this is a 500 gram bag. So if you bought the other one, you would end up with extra, but that's fine. You've just got some in the freezer for next week. It would be cheaper than buying the brand stuff. So 1 kilo bag of home brand beans, 1 kilo bag of peas. Again, it's the cheapest way to go. You'll end up with some excess in the freezer, but that's just going to put you in front for next week. I would also look at grabbing probably just a can of corn. You don't need the frozen bag, but I just keep the frozen bag on hand all the time anyways, so I use a lot of corn. But for the purposes of these recipes, you only need 1 tin of corn. So you could just buy a tin of corn, and that's the price you guys are seeing up on the screen at the moment in our tally. The other thing I would look at is I do have frozen cauliflower. This is a 500 gram bag, but you could price out a fresh cauliflower head and see which one's cheaper. So the frozen bag usually goes for about $4. Check out the prices of a fresh cauliflower head and see if it's cheaper to buy it that way. Today it wasn't for us because cauliflower isn't in season at the moment, but it's one of those things, you know, sometimes frozen is cheaper, sometimes fresh is cheaper. You guys just need to have a look around and find the best deal for you at the time, which brings us to all of our fresh stuff. This is what varies the most week to week, depending on what's in season and what's on sale. So if you need to substitute some things, go ahead and do that. There's lots of ways you can substitute different vegetables in here, but this is what I'm working with this week. So we have a bag of baby spinach leaves. I've grabbed 2 tomatoes. That's all I really need for these recipes. You could have a look and see if the cherry tomatoes are cheaper, or if 2 tomatoes are cheaper. Do whichever way works, and how much tomato you like as well. I have some garlic that's out of my fridge. You could buy a jar of minced garlic. That's a nice cheap way to keep garlic on hand, or if you've got some fresh garlic. I only need a little bit, so I didn't need to put that on the shopping list, but I am including it because we are going to use it. I've also got 1 onion because that's all I need. I do have 1 lemon because one of the recipes I am going to do, I'd like the zest of a lemon, but if you're just looking for lemon juice, it's possibly cheaper to get your good old squeezy bottle of lemon juice, and that'll do exactly what you want it to do. This is about $1 for the small bottle, and that'll be everything you need. Or if lemons aren't a bad price, or if you know someone who's got a lemon tree, grab a couple of lemons. I have a really large zucchini. This was $2. This is a unit price one, but it's huge. It's like the size of 2 normal zucchinis. I also have a red capsicum, an avocado. I've got 4 large potatoes, 4 jacket potatoes. Again, you could price out sweet potatoes, see if they're cheaper, or if white potatoes are cheaper. I went with white potatoes because they're cheaper than sweet potatoes at the moment, but interchangeable. And I've got a kilo of carrots. So that is everything that I'm going to use to make meals for the next 5 nights. I'll also be using some basic pantry staples. You won't necessarily need all of these, and I will talk you through some of the substitutions as we get to each of those recipes, but having things on hand like oil, salt and pepper, some soy sauce will be useful for some of these recipes, along with things like garlic powder, onion, ginger, some cumin, paprika, bit more specialized, because we are going to do a curry, is some curry powder and some garam masala, but again, not necessary. You don't need all of these things. Some of these things will work, or I will give you some substitutions as well. The other thing you'll probably want is just your favorite types of seasoning. This is to go on our tofu. We like this one. You can choose whichever one it is that you like to use at home. And if you didn't want to get fresh mint, you could use dried mint. So I threw this one in as well. I did get fresh mint, but there's just another option for you. These are all things that I consider to be pantry staples. I have them on hand all the time, and I'm assuming that you'll have, if not exactly the same, very similar ingredients that you will be able to use and substitute as you need. I'm going to start up by doing some bulk prep, and the first thing I'm going to do is make a pea and mint pesto sauce that's going to be used in 2 recipes. So let's get started with that. We're going to start by adding 2 cups of frozen peas to the blender. About 1 cup, or 1 decent handful of baby spinach leaves. This one's not an exact science. And a couple of sprigs of fresh mint, just rinsed and then finely diced. Again, it's not an exact science. It's probably about 1/4 cup. One large garlic bulb, or 1 teaspoon of minced garlic, if that's what you're using. It's going to go into a food processor, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but roughly dice that up as well. 3 tablespoons of olive oil. 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. And we're going in with a crack of salt and pepper. This is pretty much just to taste. You can always adjust this at the end and add some more if you want to. Oops, as well. And then we're just going to blitz this together until it's well combined. If it's a little bit thick and you're not happy with it, just go ahead and add some ice cold water. And keep blitzing. So blend until it's a nice runny consistency. You can adjust the salt, the pepper, add a little bit more lemon if you want it to be a little bit more lemony. But that's the first part done. I'm going to put this in a container and keep this in the fridge. The first meal I'm going to make is going to be some crispy tofu with roasted carrots and green beans. We serve that on a side of rice, and we're going to drizzle a little bit of our mint pea pesto sauce that we've just made over the top of it. So for seasonings, I'm going to add some of our favorite seasonings to the tofu. You can use whatever you like. So for us, we're really enjoying this smoky and charred Alabama style rub at the moment, but you could do anything that you like. And I thought what would pair really nicely with that on the carrots is some paprika and garlic and salt. So I'm going to use those seasonings, but again, you use what you've got at home and whatever your family enjoys. I'm going to start by prepping our tofu. I'm just going to drain this. You can press it if you want to. I don't, but that is totally up to you. going to go ahead and chop up quite a few of our carrots. These are little itty bitty tiny carrots. So I'll probably do quite a few of these. I'm thinking about half the bag. Lots of carrots. But we've still got some carrots left over for other recipes. You can go ahead and chop up your carrots any way you like. I'm doing half moons because I'm going to roast my carrots in the air fryer. And this way will cook nice and quick. You can also roast them in your oven if that's what you want to do, or you could just steam them. Half moons is a nice, quick, easy way to chop up a whole heap of carrots. Now that we've chopped up all of our carrots, we're just going to give them a tiny drizzle of olive oil, and we're going to season them with some garlic powder, salt and paprika. Again, this is optional and you can just use whatever herbs and spices you've got at home that your family likes. I think these will really contrast nicely with the rub that we've put on the tofu. So I am just trying to work with the flavors that we've got happening. But again, you can just leave it off if you want to. You can go ahead and either roast these in the oven, or I'm going to cook them in the air fryer until they are nice and crispy. So I'm going to pop them on 200 degrees. I'll put them in for 10 minutes to start off with, give them a bit of a jiggle, and a few more minutes until they are cooked through to my liking. I'm also going to go ahead and cook my rice. So for this recipe, I want to cook 1 1/3 cups of rice. That'll be enough for 4 serves. But I'm actually going to do 3 dishes with rice this week. So I'm going to bulk prep all of the rice that I need for the week ahead so that I only have to cook once. So today I'm going to cook 4 cups of rice. I'm going to use the absorption method, which on the back of this packet is 1.5 cups of water for every 1 cup of rice. So that'll be 4 cups of rice and 6 cups of water. And I'll have rice for this meal, plus the other 2 meals that I'm cooking that also need rice. I also like to rinse my rice just to get any dust off it. And of course, if you don't like to bulk cook your rice or batch cook it, you do not have to do that. Just cook enough rice for each of the meals. I would cook 1 1/3 cup of dry rice for 4 people for each of these meals. All right, and at the end of the week, you will be left over with a very small amount of rice left over, but we've pretty much used up all of that. If you wanted to cook a little bit extra and have larger servings, you certainly can. There's enough rice there to cook a little bit more for each of these meals. Or you got some pantry supplies for next week. My preferred way of cooking rice on the stovetop is to bring this to the boil, and then I'm going to turn it down. I'm going to let it simmer until I can't see any of that water on top anymore. As soon as I can't see the water on top, I'm going to turn it completely off, take it off the heat and let it sit for 10 minutes, and then my rice is going to come out cooked and fluffy and beautiful. My rice is resting, my tofu is just finished. The last thing I'm going to do is just microwave half a bag of our beans. I'm going to save the other half for a different recipe. But I'm just going to take a shortcut with this one, and I'm going to stick this one in the microwave. And this is our rice. So it's steamy. Let's go ahead and give that a nice fluff. I'm going to take out 2/3 of this and put this in the fridge for 2 other recipes. I'm going to do that while this is still hot. You can freeze cooked rice if you'd prefer to, but I'm going to use this within the next couple of days, so I'm not too worried about it. And again, like I said earlier, if you prefer not to cook your rice in advance, if you don't like reheating rice or you don't like eating leftover rice, then you can just go ahead and cook the rice that you need for each of these dishes. But because I live in a caravan and I prefer to only cook when I have to, I like to bulk cook things. So go ahead and cook once and eat 3 times in this case. Alright, now everything is cooked. We've got our tofu, green beans, our roasted carrots, our white rice, and our dressing, which is still in the fridge. I'll grab that out in a sec. Now it's time just to dish it up amongst 4 serves. And here we are all dished up. These are our 4 serves. So our family has 1 extra because there's only the 3 of us. This is going to go in the fridge for somebody to have for lunch tomorrow. I think these will make a great meal prep if that's what you wanted to do as well. The only thing left to do for today is to drizzle on our mint pea pesto sauce that we made earlier today, and this is going to add in some extra sneaky veggies. We've got peas and baby spinach and some mint in there, and this is going to be delicious. So go ahead and just give that a little drizzle. They never look quite as pretty once the sauce goes on, but there you go. And that is meal number 1. The second meal I'm going to be pulling together from our little grocery haul is a green pasta. So I'm going to use the rest of the mint pea pesto sauce that I made yesterday. We're going to use that to top our pasta. I'm going to make it creamy by adding in half of the coconut milk. The protein is going to come from some cannellini bean and the pasta itself. Pasta is a good source of protein, don't forget that. And peas. Peas are also a great source of protein. So even though there are peas already in here, we're actually going to add some more peas as well. And to flesh out the rest of the pasta, I'm going to use half of my gigantic zucchini. This is, I would consider the size of this would be equivalent to have purchased 2 small zucchinis. So I'm going to use half of this and save the other half for another recipe. If you purchase smaller size zucchinis, then go for 2 and use a small zucchini in this recipe. And we're going to throw in some more baby spinach. So lots of green goodness. It's going to be lots of protein and it's going to be super filling. So there's lots of fiber in this as well. This is just an all-round awesome meal, and it's going to be so quick and easy because we already made the sauce yesterday. There's not a lot of prep for this one, so I'm going to start by measuring out a cup of frozen peas. Then I can get my bag of peas back in the freezer. I'm just going to keep this aside for a few minutes when our sauce is ready. I'm going to drain and rinse our cannellini beans. Any type of white bean would work in this. Cannellini is just what I had in the pantry, so that's what I'm going to use, but you could use any type of white bean. I think that will work perfectly. Now that they're rinsed and drained, I'm just going to set them aside. I'm going to chop up half of my gigantic zucchini. I mean, it's almost the same size as my knife. It's quite ridiculous, but this is what I had access to, so this is what we're going to use. I'm going to put the other half aside for another recipe. Alright, and lastly, we're going to use another couple of handfuls of baby spinach. Grab out another big handful Again, this isn't an exact science with the baby spinach. I know that I want to have enough for at least one more recipe, but I can include it in a 4th recipe as well if need be, which, having a look at how much I've got left, is what I think I'm going to do. But again, I'm just being flexible with the ingredients that I've got and seeing how far they go. It's probably also worth bearing in mind that I do have quite a bit of the baby spinach already in my dressing over here as well. So definitely got a lot of greens going on, and if I can spread that nutrition out over a couple of days through a couple of meals, then I think that's a good thing as well. Just roughly chopping that baby spinach. It is going to wilt when we cook it down in the sauce, so I'm not too worried about it. And that's all of our prep. Right over the back here, I've got my large pan, my large pot coming to the boil, and I'm just going to cook the pasta according to the packet direction. So whatever type of pasta you're using, just follow the instructions on the back there. We just want the pasta to be al dente, just cooked, because we are actually going to transfer it from the water into the sauce pan over here and mix it all together. So in my very large deep skillet pan or sauteing pan, I don't know what you want to call it, it's a large frying pan, 3.5 liters, I think. As you can see, it's quite deep. This is what you want, because we're going to make the sauce and we're going to add the pasta to it. So we're going to start off by heating a little bit of oil, and once our oil has warmed up, our pan's warmed up, I'm going to go ahead and start cooking off the zucchini. Once the zucchini is cooked off and you're happy with the way that looks, go ahead and get those white beans in. Just going to cook those off a little bit as well. And then it's all going to simmer together in the sauce before the pasta goes in. Time to pour in the remainder of our pesto sauce. And we're going to add in half of our can of coconut milk. I'm going to err a little bit more to the side of less than half, because I'm going to save the rest of it for our curry. Mix that together. I'm going to pop the lid on and just let that cook for a few minutes while our pasta is finishing. Once the pasta is cooked, add it into our sauce. This is why we need a really big pan. Gently mix to coat. And we just want the pasta just al dente, slightly undercooked, still a little bit chewy, because we still need to add in our peas and our baby spinach. Both of those ingredients only need a few minutes just to cook through, and if we want our peas to stay nice and bright, we don't want to add them until right at the very end. So our pasta is going to cook just for a few more minutes here in this sauce. That'll also soak up some of the liquid that's in our sauce. It'll all come together beautifully. So now we're going to go ahead and add our half frozen peas, because they've been sitting out, and our baby spinach. And very gently we're going to mix this through. It's a very full pan, and this is why you want a large skillet or a deep frying pan like I've got here. I'm just going to pop the lid back on for about 2 more minutes, and then that is going to be done. Alright, so here we are all dished up. Sorry, the lighting is not great over here on this side. Lots of shadows happening, but look at this. We actually have 5 massive serves here. So this recipe made a lot. They are 4 really big serves. If anyone wants to go back for a little bit more, they certainly could. Or you could just dish it up into 5 serves, which is what I've done here tonight. So we're going to have 3 for dinner here tonight, and I've got 2 that are going to go in the fridge for lunch for tomorrow. Now when it comes to serving, you could definitely give this a little extra squeeze of lemon juice over the top, and if your family has Parmesan cheese or nutritional yeast, which is what's hiding in our Parmesan cheese container, go ahead and sprinkle a little bit of cheese on the top as well. But I think the lemon juice, just a little squeeze, will be a delicious way to finish this meal off. Dinner tonight is a knockoff of a HelloFresh recipe that I have been making for ages. It's the Japanese beef rice bowl. This one's going to be a little bit different. We are missing some key ingredients, and I was going to substitute the beef mince for grated tofu, but I didn't get it out of the freezer and it's completely frozen. So we're going to sub again, and we're going to use some textured vegetable protein. If you want to make the same sub, you can pick up a bag of this for about $5 from Coles. It's going to be a lot more than what you need. We're only going to need a cup for this recipe, so you will definitely have heaps left over in your pantry if you wanted to make that sub. Or you can grate a block of tofu, or you could use mince beef, which is what is in the original recipe. So other than the protein swap, we're going to use up some of our vegetables. I'm going to use half of our onion, reserving the other half for another recipe. I'm going to use the other half of our ginormous zucchini. So if you didn't pick up one huge zucchini, this is equivalent to one small zucchini. We're going to be using some of our beans, our peas, and our carrots, and our baby spinach. This is loaded with vegetables, which is awesome. We have already pre-cooked the rice. If you don't want to pre-cook your rice, then we're going to cook up 1 1/3 cups of white rice. So we have 4 serves, but I did this the other day because I like to cook once and eat many times. And then we're down to our seasonings. So we are missing a few of our key ingredients for this one, but we're still going to pull together a really delicious meal with just some oil, some soy sauce, and we're going to throw in some garlic and ginger. If you have fresh garlic and ginger, you could use that as well. And we've got the onion as well to go with that. The key ingredient that we are missing from this is oyster sauce. If you have some in the pantry and you want to use it, go ahead and grab that, and you can throw that in as well as a sweetener. So brown sugar works really well in this one. And the original recipe, instead of using olive oil, it did have sesame seed oil, which gives it a little bit of a different flavor. We have made some substitutions with this, but it's still going to turn out really delicious. It's just not like the original HelloFresh recipe. So maybe this is closer to a chow mein. I'm not really sure. Prep for today is very basic. I'm going to grate our carrots and zucchini. These are very small carrots. This is equivalent to, say, 2 medium-sized carrots. I've used 1/4 of our 1 kilo bag, so about 250 grams of carrots for this one. Like I said, a small zucchini. I have taken out a cup of our green peas. I'm just going to let those defrost. The others are back in the fridge, and we'll dice up half of the onion and reserve the other half of the onion for another recipe. But let's start by grating. Alright, to rehydrate our textured vegetable protein, just follow the instructions on the back of your packet if that's what you're using. This is a 1-to-1 ratio, so I'm going to measure out 1 cup of dried TVP, and I'm going to soak it in 1 cup of hot water. This basically has no flavor to it, so if you wanted to use broth or if you wanted to add some flavorings to it, you certainly could. I've done lots of things like adding soy sauce or Vegemite, gives it a nice meaty kind of flavor, or you can just rehydrate it as it is. Of course, if you are using the tofu, you want to go ahead and grate the tofu as well, and it's again not going to have any flavor to it. We're going to need to flavor it so we're in the same boat. I'm just using hot tap water. You can boil it if you want, but I find this works just fine. I'm just going to set this aside for about 5 minutes. It's going to rehydrate and fluff back up. While our TVP is rehydrating, we're going to just heat some oil in our pan, and we're going to start cooking off our vegetables. So start with the onion. If you have fresh ginger and garlic, you can go ahead and toss those in now as well. Once our onions have got a bit of colour, we'll go ahead and add in our carrot and zucchini, and we'll start cooking these vegetables down. Just going to pop the lid on that one and let those cook for about 5 minutes. Alright, now that our carrot and zucchini have cooked down a bit and our textured vegetable protein has rehydrated, go ahead and dump that in. If you are using grated tofu, you can just go ahead and chuck that in now too. If you are opting to use beef mince like the original recipe does, you'll want to have browned that off first. So cook the mince first, remove it from the pan, and then starting adding in your veggies, and then you can add your browned mince back in. But using vegetable based proteins like TVP and soy or tofu, you don't actually need to do that. So we're going to distribute that round, and we're going to start adding in our flavors. We're going to start by adding in a couple of tablespoons of soy sauce, and this is going to vary depending on exactly how much vegetables you have and how much tofu you've got as well. So I'm starting with 3, and I think the best thing to do is we'll just build up the flavor and we'll see how we go. So we're going to mix that through, and we're going to add in half a teaspoon of garlic and ginger powder. And once again, we're just going to mix that through until it's well combined. Right, we're going to go ahead and add in the rest of our veggies. Unfortunately, I didn't actually record the peas going in, but that's a cup of peas, and we've got the other half of our 500 gram bag of green beans. It's going to be lots of veggies in this one. Again, we're going to mix that through. And last of all, I have just diced up another handful of baby spinach. I've still got a handful of that left in the bag, and we're just going to let that wilt on top and put the lid back on and give it another 5 minutes. Alright, once it's cooked for a few more minutes, I'm going to give it a stir. Go ahead and just give it a taste, see if it needs some more soy sauce or a little bit extra ginger or garlic, depending on exactly how you like it. It's going to be quite a gentle flavor. Like I said, it is missing the oyster sauce. Of course, if you've got that, go ahead and chuck it in. It's only going to make things better. But this is going to be nice and light. So we'll have a look. It's not bad. I think for this size pot, I'm going to give it a little bit extra soy sauce. But again, this is something you can just play with and make it to your liking, depending on what you like. So Start with a little bit, add a little bit more if you need to. And these are our servings. So once again, this is actually made 5 or almost 6 serves. I've actually got quite a bit of the topping left over. I only had enough rice for 4 serves, so I've dished that up. But as you can see, I've actually got some leftover topping. So this could easily stretch to feed 5, maybe even 6 people if you cooked a little bit more rice. And we had some extra rice left over in our bag earlier, so you could definitely do that one. This has made a ton of food. These are big serves. I'll try and show you. They're loaded full of veggies, and it's going to be absolutely delicious. So I'm going to put these 2 in the fridge. We'll have some leftovers. We've got 1 serve ready to go, and that one we can either use just as it is, or I can cook up some extra rice to go with that one as well. But there we go. That is meal number 3. Dinner number 4 is going to be some loaded jacket potatoes. So I've picked up 4 quite large potatoes. Tried to get them all about the same size. This is a little over 1 kilo of potatoes here. And we're just going to load them with some black beans, corn, and red caps. We're going to mix all of that together. I'm also going to top it with a little bit of fresh tomato and some avocado. And for seasonings, we'll just use some really basic seasonings from your pantry, things like onion, garlic, maybe a little bit of paprika and cumin, or, which is what I'm going to do, is I'm just going to use the same seasoning that I used on the tofu from the first night, because we really quite like this one, and we'll call it easy done. There we go. Another easy dinner. Not a lot of cooking to pull this one together. We're really just roasting the potatoes, and the rest of it is just going to be a cold salad that's going to go on top. A couple of options for the potatoes depending on what you have and what you want to use. I'm taking the easy option today, and I'm going to microwave these and then stick them in the air fryer. That is the quickest way to do roast potatoes. I am stabbing them so they don't explode in the microwave. You could just roast these in the oven if you wanted to. I think they're going to take about probably 40 minutes to roast in the oven. I don't really want to run my oven for that long. So what I'm going to do is microwave each of these probably for about 4 minutes each. I will do these in groups of 2, I think. So I'll probably put them on for, say, 8 minutes in the microwave, in a microwave safe container. 2 will fit in a container with a little bit of water, about 1/8 of a cup. This is 1/4 of a cup, so we'll see. Yeah, I reckon about 1/8 of a cup will do. I'm going to pop the lid on that, and then I'm going to microwave that for 5 minutes, and I'll just release the steam so it doesn't pop the lid in the microwave, and then probably give it another 3, and then these are going to go into the air fryer to finish cooking on the outside. The microwave's basically going to cook them, or par cook them, and then the air fryer will do the rest of the work for us. While the potatoes are in the microwave and starting, I'm just going to start dicing up everything for our toppings. This is 1 1/4 cups of frozen corn. It's equivalent to a can of corn. So in the costing for this, I've just costed out a can of corn because that's all we really need. But what I had was a bag of frozen corn, so that's what I've used. But obviously, I've got a lot of that bag left over, and I'm not going to use it all up. So I'm just going to let that sit out and defrost. I'm going to go ahead and drain my beans. And I will make sure to drain these and rinse them really well as well. We're going to make sure we wash all the liquid off these. And I'm going to dice up our capsicum. For the topping for everybody, for our family, it will be the corn, the black beans, and the red capsicum. Charlotte doesn't like tomato or avocado. So I'm going to leave these two ingredients separate so Shannon and I can add these, and then Charlotte can leave them off if she wants. But the rest of this salad or toppings we're going to just mix up so we can just spoon it onto our potatoes when they are cooked. Right, I'm just going to mix all of this together. I did just microwave the corn a little bit, which is not necessary, except that mine was frozen. So if you're using a tin, you don't need to do that, but if you're using frozen, you either let it sit out and thaw, which I am too impatient for because I am hungry. I'm just going to mix this together, and then we're just going to go ahead and season it however you like. So if your family likes eating the tomatoes, I would go ahead and add those in as well now. I'm going to have them separate just for my family. So like I said before, our daughter is not a fan of tomatoes, but I'm going to mix this together and season it. I'm using the same seasoning that I used earlier on the tofu. If you've got a taco mix or a taco seasoning that you like, or if you just want to mix some herbs and spices together with whatever flavors your family enjoys, just go ahead and do that. And mix again. And this part's pretty much done. I've allocated half a tomato for each person, so for our 4 serves we've got half a tomato. I'm only going to cut up 1 tomato for today. This is half for Shannon and myself, and I'll cut up the other half if one of us is having our leftover serve, because remember this is making 4 serves, but there is only 3 of us having dinner tonight. So if you're doing all 4 serves and everybody eats all of the tomatoes, then go ahead and dice all the tomatoes up. If not, you can do what I'm doing and do the appropriate amount. And we're doing the same with our avocado. So 1/4 of an avocado for each serving. I'm only going to use half for Shannon and myself today, so we'll put the other half aside for tomorrow. Ta-da. If you haven't got one of these little avocado savers, they are magic. They're definitely worth investing in. So here are our potatoes. They had 15 minutes in the air fryer. I gave them 10 minutes on one side and then turned them over and did 5 minutes on the other side. I did stab them while they were cooking to make sure that they cooked through properly. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut each one of these open so that we can get our fillings through on the inside. I'm just going to go ahead and top each one with our beans and corn mix. I'm just going to divide that equally between our potatoes. And we're going to top some of them with tomato. Like I said, if everybody in your household eats tomato, I would just mix that in with the beans and the rice, not keep it separate, and top with avocado. And of course, if you've got cheese and sour cream and butter and all of those sorts of things in your fridge that you would like to use and top your jacket potatoes with, go ahead and use up the stuff that's in your fridge. You may as well, it's there, you may as well use it. You don't have to not use it because it's not in somebody's recipe, but if you're only using the things from the shopping list, then this is it. These are our jacket potatoes, topped with corn, black beans, red capsicum, tomato, and avocado. Delicious. It's night 5, so this is the last meal that I'm going to pull together with our little grocery haul, and this really is throwing in everything that is left over. So it is going to be a cauliflower and chickpea curry, and we're going to serve it on rice. I cooked this rice up at the beginning. This has been in my freezer, so it's just out and defrosting now. If you didn't want to pre-cook all of your rice, I would recommend 1 1/3 cup of dry rice for 4 serves. That is what I've cooked, and that's what works well for our family. Now the rest of this is using up everything that we've either put aside for this recipe or we've got left. So I still have half of my onion. I did put aside half an onion for this recipe, and the last of our garlic cloves. If you purchased the crushed garlic, you'll have a whole jar full, and you'll have heaps to go around. You'll definitely have some things left over for the fridge if that's the case. I'm also going to throw in the last of our carrots. So this is about 250 grams of carrots. This is 1/4 of our bag. This was a 1 kilo bag of carrots, and I'm just going to throw in the last of what's left. We're obviously throwing in this entire bag of cauliflower and the leftover green veggies that we've got. So we've still got a heap of peas. I'm going to throw in a cup of frozen peas. I'm going to throw in the last handful of our baby spinach. Doesn't look too bad. It's hanging in there all right. I'm also going to use up the other half of our can of coconut milk. This has been in the fridge, and I'm going to throw in some diced tomatoes and some stock. I won't use all of this stock. I'm only going to use half of it. And again, this was an optional extra. You don't have to have this one. You could use stock that you've got if you've got homemade stock and you've got some in the freezer, or if you're happy to use just a stock powder, you could do that as well. I'm just taking a bit of a shortcut. Or, you know what? You could probably just use some water and let all the rest of this stuff flavor it. You probably don't really need stock. It is just one of those things. Use it if you've got it. Don't stress if you don't. Now, flavorings. We are going to go for a curry. So your options are, you could go into your spice cabinet and find some of the ingredients that we've been using already. Things like onion and garlic powder if you don't have some fresh stuff, or you just want to add a little bit more oomph. When you're only using half an onion, I like to go in and add a little bit extra onion powder and garlic powder. Just kicks it up a notch. And if you have things like paprika and cumin, you can go ahead and use those. Or if you want to go a bit more curry style, maybe some curry powder and some garam masala. It really is about what your family likes and what you've got on hand. We've got curry powder and garam masala, so I'm going to use those. But if all you've got is some basic herbs, go ahead and make your own herb spice blend with what you've got in the pantry. It's all going to work, and it's all going to be delicious. I'm going to start by putting aside just 1 cup of frozen peas. Just going to let those thaw and sit out for a little bit, and I'll put the last of my bag back in the freezer. So as you can see from that 1 kilo bag, I've still got a little bit more than a cup left that I can use for another recipe, or you know, I can just have some sort of use it up meal at the end of this week. The rest of our veggie prep is really straightforward. I'm going to dice up our onion and garlic, and I'm just going to chop up all of our carrots. I'm going to do them in half moons, just like I did the very first night, I think it was, when we did the tofu bowls. So similar sort of thing. They just cook really well. I'll do them a little bit thicker so they hold up in the curry, but I do want to cook this and let it simmer for about half an hour so all of these flavors can develop. So I do want some of my veggies to fall apart a little bit, but I want some to hold their shape. So we've got something to scoop up and stab with a fork. So I've gone a little bit thicker, a little bit chunkier with these ones, just so they hold up with the longer cooking time. by heating up some oil in the pan. You do want a fairly generous amount of oil for this one. If you are cooking curries and using curry powder and ingredients like that, they really like to be cracked over hot heat to bring out all of the flavors that you want. So we're going to start with a fair bit of oil. There's probably like a good 2 tablespoons there. And we're going to start by frying off our onion and garlic. We're going to get a little bit of color into these guys. Nice bit of sizzle going on here, which is what you want. This is when we're going to come in with our curry powder. And again, use whatever seasonings that you've got at home that your family likes. I'm adding in 2 teaspoons of curry powder. And we're going to cook that off until it becomes fragrant. This is definitely one of the keys to cooking with curry powder. If you've used it before and you're not a huge fan, make sure that you crack it over some hot heat first before you add everything else in, which is basically a little bit of oil in the pan. You can get your onions going if you want to, but get that curry powder in, heat it up with some hot oil, and get those fragrances coming out. If you guys could smell this right now, it's starting to smell amazing, and that is what we want our curry powder to do. I'm also going to go in with our garam masala, which is a blend. If you don't have this one, this has got things like, let's have a look. Nutmeg, coriander, cloves, cumin, fennel, cinnamon, cardamom, ginger, pepper, and chili. So it's a blend. If you don't have this, you could use similar sorts of ingredients that maybe you've got in your pantry. And again, we're going to crack this over the heat and get those, oh wow, that's starting to smell amazing. Get all of those fragrances coming out. I do have my pan on a medium heat as well. I do want this to cook quite hot to start off with. So medium for me is giving me a good sizzle. Now we're going to get our tomatoes in. Straight in with our tin of diced tomatoes. And this is when we can also turn the heat down a little bit as well. Give that a good mix and get those flavors through. And now we're really starting to flavor up our sauce. If you want to add in a little bit extra onion and garlic powder, which is what I'm going to do, now is the time to do that as well. I'm going in with half a teaspoon of garlic and half a teaspoon of onion. We're also going to add in 2 cups of stock. I will end up with some stock left over, but I'm just going to stick that in the freezer. And we're going to give all of that a really good stir. Mix it up really well. We're going to get our carrots in and start cooking. Carrots are going to take the longest. So I'm going to pop the lid on this, bring them to the boil and let them simmer away for 10 minutes. While the carrots are cooking, I am just going to go through our cauliflower here and just try and cut them into similar sized pieces. Some of them are really quite large, so I'll just sort of chop them up a little bit just so that we have a little bit more bite-sized pieces, and they're just going to cook through a little bit better. I think they need to still defrost for a few more minutes, so I'm going to let them sit out on the chopping board and I'll come back to them in a minute. Ooh, all right, our carrots have had a nice little cook, and we're going to get the cauliflower in. I did dice it up so it's a bit more even, and we'll go ahead and chuck in the chickpeas as well. I'm going to mix this until it's well combined. Then we're going to put the lid on again and let it cook for another 10 minutes. It's been another 10 minutes, so we're going to check in again and see how it's all doing. Looks amazing, smells really good. So I'm going to add in the coconut milk. Now's a really good time just to give it a little taste test and see if you want to add some more of your herbs and spices. That is really delicious. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to add in our peas, and we're going to dump in the last of the baby spinach. Gently mix again. And like pretty much everything I've cooked this week, you're going to want a big pan for this one. This is a lot of sauce. Lots of veggies in here, so a nice deep pot is definitely what you want to go for. I'm going to put the lid on again, and we're going to let it cook for another 5 minutes. And now, because of the type of sauce that we've made, this is quite runny. If you don't like a runny sauce, you've got a couple of options. You can just go ahead and mash up some of our veggies. That's why we wanted some of them quite soft. You can use the back of a spoon or a potato masher, or if you have like a stick blender, you could use that as well. The other thing that you could do is you could cook in some lentils or something along those lines, which would help thicken up this sauce as well. But we're just going to give this a bit of a mash with the back of our spoons. I don't mind if it's quite runny. It's going to be served on rice. It's going to be absolutely delicious. And here we are all plated up. So I have our 3 serves for tonight. I have our 4th serve, which will go in the fridge for somebody for lunch for tomorrow. But once again, this sauce has made a huge pot of curry. So we've definitely got some leftover serves here. I think if we cook some more rice, we've got at least another 2 serves. So I would say that our curry has made 6 serves. With our rice, I could have made extra rice. I did have a little bit left over in the bag. But this can go in the freezer, and we've got a meal ready to go later on down the track. So there's our 4 serves, plus some extras. We've got a ton of food out of our $50 haul. Well, there you have it. I did say today's one was a big video, so thank you if you have made it all the way to the end. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, if you found it useful or interesting, if you could please give it a thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. It lets me know the kind of content you guys are enjoying and what you'd like to see more of. And if you'd like to see more from me and you haven't already, now would be a great time to go and hit that little subscribe button. It is the best way to stay up to date with all the things that are happening at our place and be notified when my new content comes out. Well, until my next video, I hope you guys are staying well, and we will chat soon. Bye.